Like I said, we're jumping back into our book of Proverbs, and today is the most interesting sermon I think I've had to date. It's just the one that when you talk about parenting or look at parenting, you're stepping on people's toes, and that is not my hope. But my hope is to be biblical today and to go to the Word. And one thing growing up, I knew we were in trouble when our pastor would take his wristwatch off and place it on the pulpit, because I knew he was going to be long-winded. Every time he did that, it was quite. So I'm feeling that a bit today. I understand why he put his watch there, so he could watch the time. So I will just keep my watch on the wrist and be mindful of that today. But most of my sermons, I find this book really helpful. It's Christ-centered commentary, and this sermon is the same. Just really some practical ideas and practical ways how to break down a sermon. I find it really helpful. And if you have your Bibles or your device, please turn to Proverbs 24, chapter 24, verse 3-4. We're looking at 2 verses, but man, they are packed with some great wisdom that we need to look at today. So like I said, we're looking at parenting, and as we look at wisdom for the home in particular, wisdom for the home. Now for some ground rules, okay? When you talk about parenting or about the home, I do not have all the answers. I do not have many answers about parenting, okay? I am just a poor beggar showing other poor beggars where to find food, okay? And that's Jesus. And I know what happens when you talk about parenting. You know, how dare you talk about that? How dare you tell me how to parent? Well, that is not my intention today. But my intention is to find, where can we find wisdom on parenting in our homes? And that it's not to our culture, but to Jesus that we run to. And like I said, we named this series Fooled Gold because our culture is going to have a counterfeit of God's wisdom. And it's so important that we know God's word and how it addresses every issue that we will face as Christians. These days, it's not really difficult to see a total attack on the family, on the home and the family. In fact, government knows that in order to change culture, you must get a hold of the family and change it, because they know the power within the family structure. And we can see an all-out assault on the family, on the home today. There was a professor at Dallas Theological Seminary, and he loved the Bible, and he loved talking about the family and what the Bible had to say about that. He actually spent 47 years teaching the Bible and focusing specifically on the family and what the Bible said about the family. And he once wrote an article about 6 priorities that a healthy / biblical home will have. And this is what he has found. Number 1, people over things. Number 2, home over work. Number 3, spouse before children. Number 4, children before friends. Number 5, spouse over self. And number 6, spiritual over material. He ended his article with this: priorities are indeed peculiar, but they are essential. And they'll go a long ways towards producing a strong biblical home. And as we look at our city, there are many broken homes. But from the outside, looking in, it seems like they have everything. They're living the dream. They have the nice house. They have the RV. They have the boat. And then you hear the mom and dad are getting a divorce. What happened? This family looks so perfect from the outside, but inside they were falling apart. So how do we have a good home? If we listen to the culture today, what the culture tells us is the children rule the home. Give them what they want. Be their buddy. Do not have order in the home. Let them make their own choices. And if they make a bad choice, make sure they do not feel the effects of that bad choice. They cannot feel the pain of that bad decision. And do not discipline your children. And for sure, do not spank them. That's a swear word now these days. And let daycare and school raise your children, and they'll figure it out. And oh yeah, make sure you make as much money as possible for your family. And just love your job. Pour yourself into the job and not into your home. And we as Christians need to know what the Bible has said on parenting in the home. If we look to culture on how to raise our children, their methods are often not biblical, as we'll look at one today. We'll look at first of what the Bible has to say about family before we get to our text today. As we talk about parenting, for those of you who don't have kids, you might be tempted to peace out, to say, hey, this isn't about me. Has nothing about for me today. It's not true, because we all have kids in our lives. We all have parents in our lives. Some of our parents might have passed away, but there is that element of authority still in our lives. And ultimately, we're still under authority towards God. So we have a structure here that we need to follow. And you might be a grandparent here today and think, I've raised my kids, I'm done. My role is done. Nope. No, it's not. Look around in this room. Many young families. Many young families parents that need your wisdom, that need your guidance, and number one, need your prayers. So you might might not have kids, or you might be a grandparent. Your role's not done. We need your prayers to navigate these harsh waters of culture and being biblical in our homes. So we covet your prayers. The Bible defines family as the union of one man and one woman in a covenantal relationship. Genesis 1:28 says this, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion." In a broad sense, the family also includes other persons who are related by blood, the extended family. The family is the foundational institute of society, and God ordained it. Genesis 2:20-25 shows that the family is constituted by marriage. Marriage is characterized by leaving the authority structure of one's parents and joining together to form a new authority structure. Marriage is a covenant between God, a man, and a woman. Proverbs 2:17, Malachi 2:14. A contract says, I will hold on to this as long as you continue to make me happy and meet my needs. A covenantal relationship is contingent on God. Deuteronomy 7:9 says this, "Know therefore that the Lord your God is God, the faithful God who keeps covenants and steadfast love, and those who love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations." God has entered into marriage with us, and our marriages get better as we walk closer to God. In Ephesians 5:22-32, marriage and the family is a picture of the relationship of Jesus and his church. And it says, "Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one." This mystery is profound, and I'm saying that it refers to Christ and the church. The institute of family is very important and foundational to society, and it's ordained by God. Parenting is very important to God, and our children are a gift from God. Psalms 127:3 says, "Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb, a reward." So I'm a parent of 4 kids who are an amazing gift to me. Raising kids is the best thing I have ever done. It's also the most difficult thing I've ever done. And what makes it so difficult is because we have to learn how to go after their own hearts and also my heart. And that's just a layer of complexity. We are to be tour guides to our kids, raising them to know and to love God. The family structure matters. So much how the family structure in a society goes, well, so goes the society. And we need God-fearing parents and homes. So let's look at our verse today, Proverbs 24:3-4. And it says, "By wisdom a house is built, and by understanding it is established. By knowledge the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches." So we have to do some review here. We need to remember that Solomon is the author of the book of Proverbs. Besides being the wisest person, aside from Jesus, Solomon's also known as the first property developer in history. He built many structures, one of them being the house of the Lord, the temple. It took 7 years to build. He also built roads, gardens, his own house, which was amazing as well. So when Solomon says wisdom, a house is built on a physical structure, he's not just talking about a house. And we know that because he's not talking about a physical house. He was talking about, because he used wisdom and there's life-giving things in wisdom, a virtue, and there's life-giving qualities in wisdom. And I don't know the last time your house has given you wisdom. It hasn't, your actual structure. And so we can know that he's talking about the actual structure of the home. There's wisdom in the structure of the home, and that's what he's getting at. In Proverbs 3:19, Solomon says, "The Lord by wisdom founded the earth. By understanding, he established the heavens. It is by the Lord's wisdom we have life." And Solomon, all throughout the book of Proverbs, refers to wisdom as a woman. Solomon points was not that wisdom is actually a woman, but it's actually Jesus. And he only refers to wisdom as a woman for poetic purposes. He wants to make sure that we understand, as the reader, how available wisdom is when we seek God and put our trust in him. And when I think about parenting, I think about Lego, okay? So you bring the Lego, you buy the Lego, bring it home, and you got hundreds of little pieces that need to be put together. It can feel daunting, but you have an end goal in mind. You have the picture of what this structure is supposed to be. And that's what pushes you forward. It's like, okay, each piece is getting me closer to that goal. This is just like parenting. When you begin, there's so many different blocks that you have to think about. But we must keep the end goal in mind, that we want our children to be fully devoted followers of Jesus Christ. That's the end goal. As we look at our text today, there are 4 building blocks from Scripture that I would like us to look at today. And as we train and strive to teach and train our children in wisdom and build our homes on wisdom today, that being Jesus. So number 1 from our text, give your children yourself more than your money. So in verse 4, it's not talking about material things, but about harmony in the home. with all precious and pleasant riches. These things are to symbolize blessing in a home, things like harmony and unity. There's much wealth in a stable home. There is a structure to our home, one that gets many families out of harmony. I can't say that. Wait. Harmony is money. Money is talked a lot about in the book of Proverbs. It's good to be wise with money. It's good to provide for your family. That's a good thing. And the book of Proverbs knows that money and our hearts are closely tied together. The book of Proverbs knows that when we look at money, that it also is related so much to our hearts. If we have a lot of money, it's not a bad thing. But like anything, if we make that the idol, it will divide our families. Just think about this. Maybe you've experienced this. When mom and dad pass away in a family, and what is the one thing that many families fight over? Money. Yep. The book of Proverbs is going to plead with us that having a stable home is much better than having a money-rich home. Harmony and unity in a home is a gift. And you are not rich financially, that your home, but you may not be rich financially, but your home, if it's stable, it's being built on wisdom. It's not a bad thing to have money. Let me say that again. But when we pursue money over our families, that's the problem. Other proverbs that plead with us to not seek financial riches over our family are Proverbs 15, 16, 17. It says, "Better is little with the fear of the Lord than great treasure and trouble with it. Better is a dinner or herbs where love is than a fattened ox and hatred with it." Also, Proverbs 17:1 says, "Better is a dry morsel with quiet than a house full of feasting with strife." Solomon is painting a clear picture. It's better to eat the green, moldy bread and have peace in your home than it is to eat the steak and have fighting. Now, I've been a pastor for a long time, and I have yet to have the kid in my office that says, "You know what the real problem was in my family? That my parents spent too much time with me." No, the opposite's usually true, where their parents pursued their jobs over parenting them or over being part of the family. I think we, as men, if we invest the time and energy we put into our jobs, into our families, things would look very different. And I know our mindset. I've been there. I make the money and she raises the kids. Parenting is not meant for one parent to do all the parenting. Men, our children need us. This is not going to be a beatdown of men. Culture does a great job of that. You're not going to get that here. But men, you play an important role in your family. As the men go, so does the family. We do not think by engaging with our families makes a difference, but it does. Murray, I have bills, I need to work long hours and to make ends meet, and I'm making a sacrifice for my family so they can have a good life, and I'm providing for them. The question is, if we really knew what our kids really needed, well, it'd be probably a smaller house with Cheerios on the floor and us being home with them. And I can be home with my family, but have I really left work? Men, we need to make our families our priority, not money or our jobs. Be present, just not in body, but emotionally present too. Help put the kids to sleep. Help give them baths. Read the Bible to them and pray with your family. Build your house on wisdom, not counterfeit wisdom that the world will offer. Tell us, let us teach your children. Let us do that for you. That's the wisdom the culture will offer. When we go home after work, our real job begins. And that's the investment we make with our family. And the best investment we can make in our homes is with our family after work. It matters, men. It matters to your home that you're there. And if you're a single parent, to your child, be the one who provides the stable home. And I think about the single parents in our church, and I look at them, and they're doing such a great job. That's not easy. And they're actually being the stable parent in that relationship. They're providing a stable home for their kids to find refuge. Where when they send them back, it is a painful thing to take them back to the other parent because they know just the dysfunction that will be there. So single parents in this church, I want to congratulate you. You're doing great. And if you ever need help, let us know because we want to be there for you. Number 2, give your children parents who are following Jesus. Back to Proverbs 24:3, when it says, by wisdom a house is built, and by understanding it is established. And this makes more sense in the full context of the book of Proverbs. God created the world and brought it into order by wisdom. Wisdom is not just a concept or thing, but it's actually a person, Jesus, God's own Son. Wisdom is a person, and he wants to know you. And the closer we grow in our relationship towards Jesus, your wisdom will also increase. God created the world by wisdom and established order and laws for us to live by. Same goes for our homes, that we look to Jesus for wisdom for everyday life situations. But so often when our homes are falling apart, we run to everything but Jesus. Because of sin, we can expect that there'll be relationship tension in our homes because we sin against one another. But I know that as a Christian, we still seem very shocked when relationship tension happens in our homes. When there's tension and the lutes are stead, it's a result of one or both of our relationships with Jesus being off. We start to believe that there's a greater treasure than Jesus. This is how a fool lives. Proverbs 19:13 paints a clear picture of what happens when we do not treat our relationship with Jesus as a treasure. It says, a foolish son is a ruin to his father, and a wife's quarreling is a continual dripping of rain. There will be tension in your home. When we are not seeking Jesus, there will be tension in your home when you are seeking Jesus. It's really tough in a home when you have one parent seeking Jesus and the other one is not. When Shannon and I have tension in it or are fighting in our home, it's a good reflection of our relationship with Jesus. Even if you're not the one lashing out, your response matters, and it will be a clear picture of where your relationship with Jesus is. If you want harmony in the home, embrace Jesus. The best thing you can do for your children is to show them your relationship with Jesus. Jesus and your relationship to Jesus and his bride, the church. One of the ways we build our homes on wisdom is being an example to our families. Our kids need to see us praying, reading our Bibles, attend church, and singing. We need to show our kids how to work hard, but that no matter what, your family comes first over your job. We also need to show love towards our spouse. Here's a haunting thought, that your kids will turn out just like you. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? What examples are we setting for our children? When we blow it with our kids, what's our posture? What's our response? Do we run to pride or do we run to Jesus? I get it. It's one of the toughest things to admit we are wrong, let alone admit it to your kids. Can I get an amen on that? Yep. The third point is give your children instruction. By wisdom, a house is built, and by understanding it is established. We need to communicate with our kids so they understand our expectations and that our homes will be a house built on Jesus or wisdom. We need to teach what is right and what is wrong. If we are unwilling to disciple our children in the Word of God, our culture will step in and do it for us. We must teach our children how to work, the value of money, how our tongues can be used for good or for destruction. The why is so important. And if you have a kid who always asks why, we have a couple in our family, and it can cause some frustration. Just do what I told you. Don't ask why. But it's helpful because children need to know the why. Why do we do chores? Why do we not hit our sister? Why do we need to watch our tongue? Why is it important to learn how to handle money? Why is it important to do your homework? Why do we not have sex before marriage? We need to prepare not just to have the one talk with our kids about sex, but to have many talks. I don't know if you were raised and you had the one talk and then you never talked about it again. It was like, okay, we're done. No, it's an ongoing conversation. Like one day at breakfast, Oliver and I had a great talk about pubic hair. He was blown away because that he would experience one day hair where there wasn't hair before. He was creeped out, but also curious about that, how that all worked out. This is at breakfast. You know, it wasn't as weird as I thought it would be. You know, it was just kind of out of the blue. He's just like, that pubic hair, what's that about? Like, what are you talking about? What do you mean puberty? What does that mean? What does that all look like? And I was like, well, here we go. All right. So this is part of our role, is to instruct our kids in these things. Things we cannot farm out to the church or school or daycare. And some of the best conversations happen at our kitchen table. Or while we're in the car. I have one child, and it just seems like when she's in the car, it's like a green light to talk. And I have to have a choice in my mind, because I just want to drive and zone out, right? It's just like, it seems like a good time where nobody really talks. And then I have this one child. It's just like, blah, 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 blah. I was like, okay, I turn off the radio and engage here. They seem like their questions come out at random times. And the worst thing I can do is shut those combos down, which I am guilty of, because they make me feel awkward. And I feel like, what if I mess it up? Like I said, the kids have the most random questions at the most random times. Like, what does it mean to be gay? What is sex? And we need to be prepared that there's no harm in coming back to our kids and saying, hey, that's a really good question, And can I come back to you and answer that in a couple days? I just want to be able to make sure I answer it correctly. And that's where you can seek wise counsel. You can ask somebody about that. We need to see their questions as a good thing. It's good that they're coming to you instead of to social media or friends. Thank goodness, right? Some of the wisdom that friends have given my kids, not so good. So are we teaching our children from the Bible? I get it. We have some weird Bible times in our home. But it's about showing up and understanding it's a spiritual battle. That we know that there is a real enemy that doesn't want us to open our Bibles up in our homes with our families. And you might be like, well, it just doesn't feel right, and I get that. But in my home, I'm willing to watch dumb Netflix shows with them, watch dumb YouTube videos. But when it comes to these things that matter, like opening our Bibles with our families, I know I will find every excuse not to. I can memorize dumb Oiler hockey stats. When it comes to my Bible, I struggle to read it, let alone teach it to my family or memorize it. This is where it is a spiritual battle for us. You all still with me? Oh, okay, good. Right on. Number 4. This will wake you up if you were sleeping. Discipline your children for correction. Now, discipline for the purpose of correction is one of the building blocks for us to build our homes on wisdom. We do not discipline our children for the sake of punishment, but for correction. I get it. When we first had Oliver, and when he started to walk, some of you will remember this. He was an absolute terror. Must have gotten that from Shannon's side. That's where I think he got it from. He ran around, was so busy, was into everything, always moving, rarely slowing down. It was going to the point where we did not want to go out in public with him anymore. He was so embarrassing. We were very light on the discipline, and it showed. Until an older man told us, you guys need to start disciplining him. He's totally controlling you guys and your home. And it took us a while to get over, how dare he? This is my best Greta right there. Speaking of kids who need to be disciplined, I think Greta missed a couple there. Her parents were not disciplining her. Well, this is beside the point. But okay, so she flies around the world, talks about how dare we with all the pollution, and she's flying a plane all around the world. Whatever, Greta. Okay. That one was for free today. Yep. But we had to get over the, how dare he say that to us about our parenting. But you know what? He was right. He was stinking right. We started disciplining Oliver, and it slowly started to change him. Oliver finally found out he was not the final authority in our home. Yeah, it was not a good day for him. We finally established understanding because we were able to apply wisdom. When you do something wrong, there will be a consequence in our home from now on. The lack of boundaries and the lack of authority that we showed Oliver was not loving. Actually, Proverbs 13:24 actually says, you hate your child if you do not discipline them when they are wrong. We then started to teach him that God is actually our authority, and mom and dad are under his authority, just like Oliver is. And your sin is not just to us or to our home, but it's actually to holy God. As a parent, our role is to train our children, to correct them and to discipline them, because it's commanded by God. Proverbs 23:13 says, "Do not withhold discipline from a child. If you strike him with a rod, he will not die." Proverbs 29:17, "Discipline your son, and he will give you rest. He will give you delight to your heart." Teach your children that you are disciplining them because you want them to be obedient to God. You want to be obedient to God too. They need to know that this isn't simply something you have decided to do, but something God has commanded us to do. This allows them to see that you trust and obey God as a follower of Jesus. We are not owners of our children, but we are called to steer them towards God. And where do we get this concept of discipline from? We look to Hebrews 12:3-11. God himself modeled discipline to us. And it says, "Consider him who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted. In your struggles against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood. And have you forgotten the exhortation that addressed you as a son? My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor be weary when reproved by him. For the Lord disciplines the ones he loves and chastises every son whom he receives. It is for discipline that you have to endure. God is treating you as a son. For what son is there whom his father does not discipline? If you are left without discipline, in which we all have participated, then you're an illegitimate child and not sons. Besides this, we've had earthly fathers who disciplined us, and we respected them. Shall we not much more be subjected to the Father of spirits and live? For they disciplined us for a short time, as it seemed best to them, but he disciplines us for our good, that we may share in his holiness. For the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the pleasant, peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it." So there's a couple things that we can see from that passage. It says discipline is motivated by love, verse 6-10. Discipline is painful. It's one of the hardest things for me to do is discipline my kids, because I know the pain that it will cause. Discipline, when responded to, is fruitful. Verse 11. God, our Father, loves us enough to correct us, to discipline us and guide us. This flows out of his love for us. We are being parented by God. We are called to make disciples, and the overarching goal of parenting is to prepare our children to glorify and enjoy and honor God as disciples of Jesus. That is also the goal of discipleship with anyone. We are called to discipleship parenting. Proverbs 3:11-12 says, "My son, do not despise the Lord's discipline or be weary of his reproof, for the Lord reproves him whom he loves, as a father the son in whom he delights." So it's necessary because, like our children, we are sinful by nature. We do not teach our kids how to disobey or rebel. It just comes naturally to them. Every child seeks his own rule or his own life. Your child left to themselves will not develop godly character. Proverbs 29:15, "The rod and reproof give wisdom, but a child left to himself brings shame to his mother." We need to understand that any bad behavior is a heart issue in all of us. The behavior is a result of a deep issue in us and in our child. We need to go to our heart, go to their hearts, and the root. And trust me, with my child, with my kids, it is painful. because I know what is going on in their heart. But I want them to articulate what is going on in their hearts. And it takes them a long time because it's hard for them to admit what is going on in their little hearts. And I do the same. I'm no different in my sin. I know what is going on in my heart, but I do not want to articulate it to anyone. The overall goal of parenting is to prepare our children to glorify and enjoy and honor God as disciples of Jesus. Proverbs 1:8-9 says, "Hear, my son, your father's instruction, and forsake not your mother's teaching, for they are graceful garlands for your head and pendants for your neck." Proverbs 22:15 says, "Folly is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline drives it far from him." As a parent, my heart has experienced great joys and many pains. As I've seen my kids hurt, there are times where I've felt great joy and pain at the same time. The longer I parent, the more I realize how inadequate I am. When I parent out of my own strength and my own gifts, it always falls flat on my face. Navigating through parenting is difficult. It's not just difficult or hard, it's actually impossible. So what chance do we have? Here's the reality of parenting. We are inadequate for the task. It is only when we look to our Father, God, and His parenting for us that we can parent in ways God desires us to. In parenting, I've seen more than ever before the reality of my own wickedness, of my own heart, the desire to control, the pride, and the selfishness of my own heart. Our culture, and as new parents, we will fight not disciplining. I get it. We were there. I just want to have a peaceful house and to have that by setting no boundaries for my children. That's counterfeit wisdom. So how do we correct them? Or how do we discipline our children? Now, I'm talking directly to parents with small children, 2 to 10. Well, I'm going to say the S word. It's not a very popular, especially in our culture, even in the church. Proverbs clearly teaches us to spank our children. Now, there are boundaries for us as parents that we need to follow when we look at that. And let's make it clear that some of you might have had a really bad upbringing when it came to spanking, where it actually was the form of abuse called spanking. That's not what I'm talking about. I grew up in a great home where spankings were a part of my parents' discipline. It was not abuse. It was out of love that they would spank me, and I deserved every spanking I got. Let's just say that. That was a real terror. Remind me of somebody, Oliver. Yeah. And so, but it was done under that premise. For sure. Did my parents spank me sometimes out of anger? Yes, and guess what they would do? They would come back to me and say, "Hey, you know what? I spanked you out of anger. That was wrong of me. I'm sorry. Will you forgive me?" That's what I'm talking about. So whatever preconceived ideas you have growing up, if it was really messed up where it was abuse, that's not what I'm talking about, okay? But I'm talking about a biblical disciplining for correction for our kids, okay? Discipline without correction is abuse. We need to discipline our kids and give them clear correction. And maybe this will help. So here's some boundaries for parents when it comes to spanking. It's never out of anger, never for accidents like spilt milk, never because they are not doing something that you want them to do and you totally lose your mind on them and spank them. That's called abuse. Never in public, Always on the bum, not on the face or anywhere else on the body. Okay, my mom only slapped me once, and I clearly deserved it in the face. And because I cut my finger and I completely lost my mind. We used to have 4 bathrooms in our home, and I ran to all 4. Finally, she found me. I was out of my mind, and she slapped me. And guess what? I never cried again, even when they put the stitches in my finger. Because I was like, whoa, that was so out of character for her. But that's exactly what I needed in that moment. So most of my spankings were on the bum. That was the only time my mom spanked me, and that was not abuse. It was out of she knew what I needed. And that's exactly what I needed. She smacked me right into reality again, which was, I needed that. When to spank your child? Clear defiance. Now, I get it. These methods are hard because you're juggling your own heart in this. I'm angry and I just want to spank them. This is which the last point there has really helped us. When they're dishonest, rebellious. So what we do is send them to the room so that we can take a moment to evaluate our heart in that moment. And so that they can have a moment to cool down, we can have a cool down time, and then we can process when they're in their room and say, okay, this is what's going to happen. Okay? I get it, especially if you started parenting your children without spanking. I get it. It's tough. And now I'm treading on an area that is very sensitive, and you most likely a little ticked with me if you are not spanking your child. But hear me out. This is not for Murray, for your child. That is not my plan for your child. But my intention is to show you God's plan for your child from His Word. I wish I wouldn't have to preach this. It would be a lot easier. But it's in God's Word. And so that's where I cling to. And if you are struggling, hey, and I don't want you to be mad at me. I want you to have a coffee with me. Let's sit down and talk. Because a lot of times we can leave this place and say, oh, that guy is way out. Well, show me. Let's have a coffee and we can have a conversation. I would love that. When we discipline our children, we are helping them shape a biblical worldview. Understanding that when they have sinned, not only to the person or the offended one, to their sister or brother or mom or dad, but they sinned against God. One of the counterfeits of godly parenting in our culture today is a strategy called gentle parenting. Don't be fooled by the wording. The word gentle is a biblical word. We need to understand that gentleness is power under control. This is what we need to understand is that when we discipline our children, it's power under control. You need to be in control. This is what we need to do when we discipline our children. They sinned and now they need to be shown there's a consequence because of their sin. The sin is a result of what is going on in their hearts. In gentle parenting, the whole strategy is to reject any negative consequences whatsoever. Just like our culture wants a consequence-free world, and that's not reality. We see what destruction that causes. There are consequences to our sin. And Jesus took our consequence of God's wrath and placed it on Himself. We still experience the consequence of our sin. For example, if you sleep around on your wife, you're going to experience the consequence of that sin. This is taken right from gentle parenting. It says, gentle parenting wants to teach our children, not punish them. This strategy wants to raise emotionally stable adults who choose to do what is good. In gentle parenting, it never talks about your child's heart or talks about their sin towards God. This strategy for parents called gentle parenting is not a biblical model for us as Christians. However, I can see the pull for Christian parents if you grew up in a home where discipline was abuse. I can get that. Where it was not done out of love, but out of anger, towards you, and it was full on beating. If that's you, like I said, let's talk. Let's have a coffee together, so that you can see what a healthy, God-honoring discipline looks like. Gentle parenting is a counterfeit of the strategy God has laid out for us. Proper child discipline takes time, energy, and perseverance. And as parents, we need to understand the hard work that will go in and be consistent. It takes to model a parent in a way that makes much of Jesus and less about ourselves. That is gospel parenting. And it's very difficult because it requires us to mind our own hearts and our child's hearts, dealing with the root over the fruit. Behavior modification for your child is not the goal, but heart transformation is. And the only one who can change both your heart and your child's heart is the power of the gospel in our lives. We have got to give them to Jesus. The greatest legacy we can leave our kids is how to take refuge in God when times are tough. That we look to our refuge in God. I don't know about you, but for parenting, it's harder than I've ever imagined and dreamed of. At those moments of anguish when godly parents bow and trust Jesus, you're teaching your children by a powerful example. You're teaching your children to draw strength from God in suffering. And your kids will also find refuge in God when they suffer. Give them Jesus. It's the best thing you can do for your children. By wisdom, a house is built, and by understanding, it is established. By knowledge, the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, you know the hearts. You know where everybody's landing today. And Jesus, I just know you're doing work in all of us. And Jesus, I pray those areas where we feel guilty, I pray we lay that down at the cross today. Those areas where we beat ourselves up, where we've blown it with our kids, I pray that we lay that at your feet and know you paid it full on the cross, my sin. And Jesus, we pray for our kids. We pray that they will come to you at a young age and they will not stray. We pray for that, Jesus. And when they do stray, may they know they can come back to you and call out in your name in their time of brokenness. Jesus, we love you so much, and we are just so thankful for your word. In Jesus' name, amen.